My name turned to ash, a faint smudge of cinnamon from her coffee on her cheek, utterly oblivious to the quiet, devastating truth that was about to unravel her perfect world. Before I tell you what happened when they saw me, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Also, I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Drop a comment below. Let me take you back to that morning properly. The version I just told you happened in less than 3 minutes. The morning itself had been moving toward it for 9 years. I woke up at 6:32 a.m. The first thing I noticed was the smell of cinnamon coffee. My mother made cinnamon coffee only on Christmas morning, ever since we'd moved into my grandfather's house when I was 15. For 10 years, that smell had meant ritual, a signal that the family was performing. This morning, underneath it, I heard too many footsteps in the hallway for 6:32 a.m. My father's boots, my mother's slippers, something being dragged across hardwood. I sat up. There was already a suitcase in the middle of my room. I had not put it there. A knock came at the door. 3 taps. Then my mother's voice. Quiet. The voice she used when she didn't want my sister to hear. "Sweetheart, get up. We need to talk before the others wake up." I knew that voice. I had heard it through the kitchen wall the night before telling my father, "Just keep it short. Don't let her cry her way out of it." I got up. I opened the door. My mother was already inside. She had a 30-gallon hefty trash bag in one hand. She walked past me to my dresser and started pulling clothes out and dropping them in without folding. My grandmother's old cardigan went in the same way as my underwear. "Mom," I said.
My voice came out flat.
"What's happening?" She didn't answer. Behind her, my father stood in the doorway. Brad Frell, 53 years old, plant foreman at Cherryland Furniture Mill. He hadn't looked at me directly in maybe 2 years. He wasn't looking at me now either. He was looking at the wall above my head. Then he stepped forward, took the bag from my mother's hands, and slammed it against my chest so hard I hit the wall behind me. The framed family portrait from 2018 fell off its nail and cracked face down on the carpet, the one I wasn't in. He had hung that picture himself. Finally, he said low in his throat, "Pack your _ and get the hell out of our house." It was the most words he had spoken to me in 3 years. My mother stepped between us with her eyes lit up, not afraid, not angry, just lit up because my father had moved without her permission, and that was an offense she would correct later. She took my elbow and pulled me toward the stairs. The tree was lit, 8 feet of balsam, the fat-colored bulbs my grandfather had used since 1972, glowing against the snow outside the picture window. I followed her down. She walked straight to the fireplace, reached up and ripped my Christmas stocking off the mantel, the white one with silver thread my grandmother had stitched my name into, and threw it into the fire. It went up fast. The lining was synthetic. For 1 second, the smell was almost like the cedar dust in my grandfather's cabinet shop. Then it wasn't.
She turned to me.
Her face was calm. "You've ruined every Christmas since you were born," she said. "We never wanted you here." My first thought, standing in front of the fireplace with my own name burning behind my mother, was not, "How could she?" My first thought was, "Of course." She had been saying it sideways for 25 years. She had finally found a stage. There were 4 stockings left on the mantel. Cheryl, Brad, Kelsey, Tanner. The last one had been hung 2 weeks ago by my sister's boyfriend, a man I had spoken to maybe 11 times. His name was on the mantel, and mine had just turned to ash. Then my sister came down the stairs. Kelsey was 22, 80,000 TikTok followers. She was already filming. Phone held vertical, screen turned toward herself so she could see her own face. "Hey besties," she said into the camera. "This is real. This is happening live." She didn't look at me. Not when my mother handed me the bag again. Not when my father unlocked the front door. Not when she turned her phone slightly to catch my face in the frame and laughed. "Good luck starting over, loser," she said. "No one in this family is going to miss a worthless burden like you." I had socks on, no shoes. The cold from the open door hit my legs first, then the bruise already forming on my chest. I picked up the walnut box from the bottom step where I'd set it the night before. I'd carried it downstairs at midnight, almost without thinking, like my body knew before I did, and I stepped over the threshold. The snow came up to the tops of my socks before I reached my car. I closed the door behind me the way my grandfather had taught me to close cabinet doors when I was 8 years old, quietly all the way. They thought silence meant I had nothing to say. Silence was the first thing my grandfather ever taught me how to use. Let me tell you about my grandfather. His name was Roy Holloway. Born in 1946, he built cabinets for 40 years out of a one-room shop on 8th Street in Traverse City. The shop smelled like cedar and shellac and the burnt coffee in a percolator older than I was. He wore a leather apron with a horseshoe-shaped burn on the right side from a piece of walnut that had popped off his lathe at 300 degrees. He never replaced it. He said the burn meant the apron was working. When I was 8, my mother started dropping me off at his shop in the afternoons. My sister, who was 5, was already in 3 enrichment programs. I was not in any of them. My grandfather would meet my mother at the door, take my backpack off my shoulders and say, "We have work to do." Never to my mother, always to me. He gave me pine and 120 grit sandpaper. "Sandpaper goes with the grain, sweetie," he said. "Always with the grain. People are the same." I sanded pine for the next decade. The summer my grandmother died. Marlene Holloway, June of 2015. A stroke at the kitchen sink. My mother decided we should move in to help. My father didn't argue. He had just been transferred to a new plant, and we'd sold our small ranch in Acme Township for $182,000. My grandfather had a 4-bedroom house he had built with his own hands in 1971. He cleared out his office for me and my sister to share. He moved his workbench into the corner. I was 15. The first night, I heard my mother in the hallway telling my father, "Just hang in there. He's 70, maybe 5 more years." I knew even at 15 that you don't say that kind of thing about your father. I rolled onto my side. When I got up to use the bathroom an hour later, my grandfather was standing in the hallway in his gray flannel pajamas with a glass of water in his hand. He had heard it first. He had been standing there longer than I had been awake. He didn't say anything. He stepped aside so I could pass. But the next morning he asked me to come to the shop on Sundays. I went every Sunday from that summer until the week before he died. In May of 2016, my mother slapped me at a Memorial Day barbecue. She had lost a bracelet, a silver thing she'd bought herself, not even valuable, and she announced to 15 guests that I had taken it. When I said, "Mom, I didn't take it," she crossed the patio in 2 strides and slapped me hard enough to leave a hand shape on my face. My sister laughed. My father looked at his shoes. My grandfather walked over from the grill, put his palm between my shoulder blades, and walked me into the kitchen. He filled a dish towel with ice and held it against my cheek himself. Then he said something quietly. "Don't cry in front of her. Save it. Save everything." The next afternoon, he asked me to come to the shop. When I walked in, he was standing at the workbench with a small wooden box in his hands. Walnut 12 and long, 8 wide, 5 tall. Dovetailed corners, a thin cherry border on the lid, burned across the top with the tip of an old soldering iron for amber.
Hol 2016.
He held it out flat on his palms like he was handing me a sleeping bird. "Don't open this," he said. "Just keep it. Any time, any reason, any hour." I kept it at the bottom of my suitcase for the next 9 years and 6 months. I never looked inside. There is one more thing about my grandfather I need to tell you. Every Christmas Eve from the year I was 12 until the year he died, he found a reason to take me to the shop. To help him clean up, to put the year to bed, he called it. Each Christmas Day, sometime between the gifts and the ham, my mother would announce quietly to a relative or loudly in front of guests that I had ruined Christmas again. The year I was 8, I dropped a glass ornament. At 13, I left the stove on under the cinnamon water. At 17, I didn't smile right in the photograph. Every year, a different reason. Every year, the same sentence. "You ruin every Christmas." She said it like a weather report. My grandfather spent 13 Christmas Eve keeping me out of the kitchen, so she would have one fewer reason. He got sick in September of 2024.
Pancreatisch fast.
He died in October at 78. At the funeral reception, my mother cried harder than anyone. She stood next to the liquor cabinet and accepted condolences with a hand pressed to her chest. She accepted them like she had earned them. While she did, I watched her glance at the bookshelf where my grandfather kept the bourbon and his important papers. She looked at that bookshelf the way a person looks at a door they already have the key to. She was already calculating the inheritance, and she had not even taken her coat off. There is a particular kind of mathematics toxic families do. From the outside, it looks like generosity. A child gets summer camp. A child gets braces. A child gets the bigger bedroom because she is artistic. From the inside, the math is simpler. There is one child for whom money is allocated, and there is one child whose existence is a deduction. My sister went to Cherryland Academy, the local private school, from 6th grade through 12th. Tuition was $24,000 a year. She did not work a summer job. She went because my mother had decided when Kelsey was 8 that Kelsey had the spark. I went to public school. When I asked at 17 whether there might be money for college, my mother folded her hands and said in a voice she'd practiced, "Honey, college isn't your thing. You're not academic. Maybe community college, and only if you can work for it." I worked for it. 3 years at the Lakeshore Tavern, an associate degree in horticulture from Northwestern Michigan College. $11,200 in student loans, mine. I stopped asking for things after that. What I did not know, what I would not know until I walked into Northern Trust was that there had been money for me. There had always been money for me. It had just gone somewhere else. That summer, my sister took my car to film a TikTok at Sleeping Bear Dunes and scraped it down the driver's side. The body shop quoted $1,800. My mother called me into the kitchen and laid the invoice on the table between us, right next to a tin of cookies my grandfather had given her years ago. The cookie tin was a prop. "Honey," she said in her warm voice, "your sister's career is taking off. We need to support her right now. Can you cover this? You're the responsible one. This family runs on sacrifice, sweetheart." I paid $1,800. 2 weeks later, my sister bought herself an iPad Pro with brand deal money she had not told my mother about. $1,200. She showed me the box while she made coffee on a Saturday morning. She did not say thank you for the car repair. She did not know there had been a car repair. Stop for a second. I want to ask you something. Have you ever had someone in your family count down your worth out loud? Not in a fight, not in anger, just casually on a Tuesday while they're stirring sugar into their coffee. That quiet subtraction sentence that tells you exactly where you sit in their math. If you have, type "I heard it too" in the comments. I want to know we're not alone in this. In November of 2025, my mother put a banner across her Facebook profile. "Big changes coming for the Frell family. The Lord is moving." It got 142 likes. She had over 8,000 followers on a blog she called Cherish Life by Cheryl. She was a hairdresser. She did her ladies' Bible study in our kitchen on Tuesdays. They thought she was inspirational. That same week, my sister's boyfriend Tanner moved in. Tanner Brockwood was 24, 35,000 TikTok followers. Fitness content. He took over my grandfather's old reading nook, the room with the green wallpaper where my grandfather had taught me cribbage when I was 9, and he repainted it gray in 2 days. The third day after he moved in, he said, "No offense, but your aesthetic doesn't really fit the brand we're building here." I said, "Nothing." I went upstairs. On the night of December 24th, I came down for water near midnight and heard my parents in the dark kitchen. "After tomorrow," my mother said quietly, "it's just our family. Just our real family." My father didn't argue. He never argued. He poured the rest of his beer into the sink, washed the glass, and walked past me without seeing me on the stairs. I went back to my room. I took the walnut box out of the bottom of my closet for the first time in years. I set it on the nightstand. I looked at the burned letters on the lid. For Amber Hall 2016. I did not open it. I slept 4 hours. When I woke at 6:32 the next morning, it was already happening. I drove east on M72 with the heater turned up to 4 and the trash bag in the passenger seat and the walnut box on the dashboard. I had no shoes. I was wearing the wool socks I had slept in. The tops of my feet were red, and the bruise on my collarbone was already darkening. I pulled into the Walmart parking lot on US 31 at 9:12 a.m. The lot was almost empty. Christmas morning. I parked at the edge near the cart corral. I turned off the engine. The dashboard clock said 9:13. The bank opened at 9. I picked up the walnut box and set it on my lap. I had never seen the inside. My grandfather had given it to me when I was 16 and told me not to open it. I had not opened it. The lid fit so tight I had to push it with the heel of my hand to get it to lift. When it did, the smell that came out was 9 years old. Cedar faintly. Cedar and the dry paper smell of something that had been waiting in a wooden box for a long time. There were 4 things inside. The first was a brass house key, heavy in a way new keys never are, tied to a small leather tag, and on the tag in my grandfather's handwriting. Front, 1971. The key he carried on his belt loop every day of my life. The second was a folded piece of yellow notepad paper smaller than my palm. Inside in pencil that had not faded. Any time, any reason, any hour. The third was a business card, white, Northern Trust Bank, Traverse City, Michigan, Dale Peton, branch manager. On the back of the card in my grandfather's handwriting, a number 851209, and a sentence, "Tell Dale you're the granddaughter. He'll know." The fourth was a photograph, black and white, 4x6, the edges soft and curled. My father, 55 years old, standing in the cherry orchard behind the house, holding a baby wrapped in a white knitted blanket on the back in pencil. May 18, 2000. Cherry Bend. That was the day I was born. I had never seen the photograph. I did not know it existed. I sat in the parking lot with that photograph between my fingers, and I cried for the first time that morning. Not loud. I am not loud. 2 minutes with the engine running and the heater going, and the snow falling onto the windshield. Then I put the photograph back into the box, and I started the car. I called my mother once. She had blocked me. The voicemail box was full. I called my father. He didn't pick up. I called Mariah, the one friend I still had from the floral shop. She was in Florida. She answered with waves in the background and asked if I was okay. I said yes. I said, "I'll call you tomorrow." I hung up. I drove downtown. I did not know what I was about to walk into. I knew only that I had nowhere else to go, and that on a small yellow piece of notepad paper my grandfather had told me any time, any reason, any hour, and that the bank he had named was open and 9 blocks away. Northern Trust sat on Front Street in downtown Traverse City, between a fudge shop and a bookstore in a brick building from 1908. The front door had a brass handle worn smooth by 100 years of hands. I went in. The lobby was warm. The floor was old marble, gray with dark blue veins. A small artificial Christmas tree in the corner, near the teller windows. The place smelled faintly of cinnamon candle. 2 tellers were on duty. One of them, a woman in her 40s with reading glasses on a chain, looked up as I crossed the lobby in my wool socks and my gray sweater and my purple bruised collarbone. She did not flinch. She smiled professionally. I respected her for that. I set the business card on the counter. My grandfather gave me this. I said, "I think there might be an account." She looked at the card. She looked at the back. She looked at my face for a half-second longer than she needed to. Then she picked up the desk phone, pressed a single button, and spoke into it quietly. "Yes, one moment, please." She hung up. "Mr. Peton is coming out to meet you personally," she said. "Would you like a glass of water?" I said, "Yes." 40 seconds later, a man in his early 60s walked out of a corner office. He wore a brown cardigan with a worn-down patch on the right shoulder. My grandfather had owned the same cardigan. He stopped about 10 feet from me. "Miss Frell," he said. It was not a question. He was confirming something. "Yes, please come with me. Bring the box." I had not mentioned the box. He had not seen it. He looked at the canvas tote I was carrying it in and turned without waiting for me to answer. His office was at the back. Wooden desk. I recognized the desk immediately. My grandfather had built it. There was a photograph on the wall to the right. 2 men in fishing waders on a dock at Higgins Lake. One of them was Dale, 20 years younger. The other was my grandfather. Dale stepped past me, closed the office door, turned the lock, and walked to the window and pulled the blinds down one by one. Then he sat across from me and folded his hands on the walnut desk. "Miss Frell, your grandfather has been waiting for this day for 9 years. I have been waiting with him." He opened the bottom drawer. He took out a navy blue folder. The cardboard cover was soft at the edges from age, on the front in my grandfather's handwriting for Amber. "Hold until she comes in." He set the folder on the desk between us. "Miss Frell, sit down. What I'm about to show you is going to change everything your family just did to you. Your grandfather didn't just leave you a key. He left you a way to destroy them from the grave quietly and on paper." He laid a manila envelope next to the folder. "Open the box first," he said. "Show me." I set the walnut box on the desk and lifted the lid. He looked at the 4 objects inside. He smiled at the key the way you smile at a face you've known for 30 years. He reached across, took the key in his fingers, and held it up to the office light. He carried that on his belt loop for 43 years. He said he had a copy made in 2016.
He gave the copy to me.
He gave the original to you. He told me, "Dale, when she walks in carrying that key, you stop whatever you're doing. You take her to the office, you close the door, and you tell her the truth. So that's what I'm doing." He set the key down. "This is the front door key of 818 Cherry Bend Road, Miss Frell. Your house." The room tipped slightly, not a metaphor. Dale must have seen it because he reached across the desk and put one hand flat over the back of mine. "Take your time," he said. I did. He pushed the navy folder toward me. He opened it to the first page. A photocopy, notarized, Holloway Family Revocable Living Trust. Grantaire Roy Holloway. Successor Trustee Dale Patton.
Sole beneficiary Amber Lynn Ferrell.
The signature was my grandfather's. The date was August 8, 2016, 63 days after my mother had slapped me in the backyard. Dale spent the next 35 minutes walking me through the file the way you walk a child through the rules of a board game. He did not use legal jargon. He explained each document like he was talking to his own granddaughter. In August of 2016, he said, "Your grandfather walked into Crestwood and Associates 3 blocks from here." He asked Helen Crestwood one question. He said, "Can I put my house in my granddaughter's name without my daughter ever knowing?" Helen told him yes. He came back the following Tuesday with a cashier's check and a contractor's pencil he had brought from a shop because he didn't like the pens she had at her office. He signed it with the pencil, and then she made him sign it again in pen. He told me that part himself. He laid out the deed transfer. As of August 9, 2016, the property was no longer in your grandfather's name. It was in the name of the whole family Revocable Living Trust. Your grandfather retained a life estate, the right to live in the home until the day he died. But the underlying title belonged to the trust, and the trust belonged to you. He turned the page. When he died on October 11, 2024, the trust automatically converted from revocable to irrevocable. The deed transferred to you by operation of law. No probate, no court, no daughter ever needed to know. He turned another page. Your parents have been living in your house for 14 months, without paying you rent. He let that sit between us. He turned another page. Pot account. Northern Trust. Opened March 15, 2020. Sole beneficiary on death. Amber Lynn Farrell. Balance at time of grant's death. $86,000. Payable on death account. Your name on the beneficiary line. The day he died, this account became yours. He told me, when he opened it, that this money was for the repairs. The roof has another 2 winters in it. The gutters need replacing. He didn't want you stretched. He showed me a ledger. He came in every spring of the last 4 years and added to it. Always cash, small bills. He told me he saved it from cabinet commissions he didn't tell your grandmother about. The last deposit was $4,000. August 2024, 2 months before he went into the hospital. The note he had asked Dale to enter for the year she'll need it. I had to look up at the ceiling for a few seconds. When I looked down again, Dale had opened the manila envelope. 3 pages, Northern Trust letterhead, a small stamp at the bottom right of each. D. Petton Branch MGR. The first page was dated November 14, 2024. 8 days after the funeral, Cheryl Frell appeared at Branch requesting release of father's accounts to next of kin. Snorts, informed account holder did not name her as beneficiary. Left, agitated. The second was dated May 22nd, 2025. Cheryl Frell appeared with certified copy of birth certificate requesting rightful inheritance reversal. Informed beneficiary designation is irrevocable. Left, agitated. The third was dated September 3rd, 2025. Cheryl Frell appeared with husband Brad Farrell requesting meeting to discuss family hardship. Beneficiary designation cannot be contested without legal cause. Brad raised voice. Cheryl stated at exit. She doesn't even know. She doesn't deserve to know. I read that line 3 times. She came to you 3 times, I said quietly, trying to take it.
Yes. And you never told me.
Your grandfather's instructions were that I was not to contact you. He said you would walk in when you were ready.
He was very specific about that.
He also said that if your mother ever showed up here 3 times, it meant she was about to do something cruel to you. Something direct. He looked at me carefully. You walked in this morning, Miss Frell. I take it she tried something direct. I did not answer. He did not push. He turned the last page. An owner's title insurance policy from Pioneer Title paid in full on August 9th, 2016 for a premium of $1,560. This protects your title against any defect or undisclosed claim. If anyone, including family, tries to contest your ownership, Pioneer covers your legal defense costs. He pulled out one more page and slid it toward me. An asset summary, a list of everything I now owned. Real property, 818 Cherry Bend Road. Approximate market value, $340,000. Pot account, Northern Trust, $86,000. Cabinetry, equipment and lathe, $28,000. 2008 Ford F-150 pickup truck, $11,000. Total approximately $465,000. Dale tapped the page with his index finger. Miss Frell, your mother told 3 of my tellers on 3 different occasions that you were a worthless burden. I'm sitting here with $465,000 of evidence to the contrary. Your grandfather did not just leave you money. He left you the receipts. He closed the folder. He laid his hands flat over the top. There is one more thing he left for you, but it isn't paper. Come with me to the vault. Safe deposit box 218. Dale pulled the long metal drawer out and set it on a small wooden table in the privacy room. I'll wait outside, he said. Take all the time you need. He pulled the door almost closed behind him.
2 things inside.
The first was a sealed envelope, cream-colored. On the front, in my grandfather's handwriting, for my granddaughter, when you're ready to come home. The second was something wrapped in gray flannel. The flannel was old and soft and instantly familiar. The same flannel my grandfather had been wearing in the hallway the night I was 15. The night my mother had counted down his 5 remaining years to my father through the wall. I unwrapped it. A small brass key on a wire ring tied to the ring was a folded recipe card. On the front, in my grandfather's handwriting, old-fashioned for when you have your own kitchen. On the back, the actual recipe. The key was to his liquor cabinet. I opened the envelope. A 2-page letter. The handwriting on the first page was steady. On the second page, it sloped slightly downward at the end of every line, the way his hand had shaken in the last year of his life. Sweetie, if you're reading this, then your mother did what I knew she would do. I am sorry I am not there. I could only get out ahead of her. I saw all of it. The bracelet at the barbecue, the bedroom they gave to your sister. The night I heard her count my years through the wall. I never said it out loud because I knew if I did, you would feel that you had to choose. And I never wanted to make you choose.
I wanted to make the choice not exist. So I made it not exist.
The house is yours. The accounts are yours. The receipts are yours. None of it can be taken back. You are not a burden. You never were. You were the one who came to the shop. You were the one who learned to sand with the grain. You are the only person in that house who ever closed a door quietly. Don't apologize. Don't explain. Just come home. I love you, Pumpkin. Grandpa, I sat with that letter for a long time. When I came out, Dale was waiting in the corridor with his hands in the pockets of the brown cardigan.
He did not ask me anything.
He walked me back to the lobby. It was 12:47 p.m. I had been inside Northern Trust for 3 hours and 20 minutes. My phone, when I turned it on in the parking lot, had been buzzing for most of that time. 23 missed calls from my mother, 4 from my father, 1 from my sister, 6 voicemails. The first at 9:14 a.m. was high and rushed. Honey, we may have moved too fast this morning. Come home, we can talk. The third at 11:18 a.m. was sharper. If you've gone to the bank, Amber, you need to know that account is family money. It's not yours alone. Your grandfather was not in his right mind at the end. We can fix this. The fifth was my sister. 9 seconds. Okay, so my video is doing really well. Might be a problem. LOL.
Call mom.
The sixth at 12:36 p.m. was my mother again whispering, Amber, whatever they told you in there. Your grandfather was sick. You know he was sick. We can take care of this as a family. I deleted them. I drove to the Holiday Inn Express in Acme Township. $89 a night. I paid with the debit card from my bartending tips. The clerk gave me a key card and asked if I needed anything else. I went up to room 207. I locked the door. I sat on the bed. I read the letter from my grandfather one more time. Then I folded it and put it in the Navy folder, and I turned off the phone, and I went to sleep for the first time in 26 hours. When I woke at 7 a.m., the sky was just beginning to turn gray. I picked up the phone. I called the one number Dale had written down for me before I left the bank. Helen Crestwood, attorney at law, Front Street, Traverse City. She picked up on the second ring. Miss Frell, she said, Dale told me you'd be calling. Can you come in this morning? I said, yes. Helen Crestwood's office was on the second floor of an old yellow brick building. Her name was on a brass plaque next to the door. Crestwood and Associates, EST 1986. She was 67. Silver hair to her shoulders, a black wool blazer over a cream silk blouse. She stood when I walked in and shook my hand in both of hers. You look like him, she said. She poured me coffee from a French press. She slid a plate of butter cookies across the desk and pushed it gently with 2 fingers and said, Eat one. I ate one. Then she opened a navy folder identical to Dale's. She had kept her own copy for 9 years. Standard practice. She had pulled it from her file cabinet that morning. She said the moment Dale called her at home the night before. Your grandfather drafted everything in 2016 with one outcome in mind. She said, Today we activate it. You signed 2 documents. I do the rest. She slid the first one across. 30-day notice to quit. Per Michigan compiled laws section 5554-134 in Michigan. She said a person living in a home without a lease, without paying rent, without a beneficial interest is what we call a tenant at will. Your parents and your sister and her boyfriend fall into that category. The law is straightforward. You serve them a 30-day notice to vacate. If they don't leave, I file a summary proceedings complaint at the 86th District Court. That's the local district court for Grand Traverse County. The court schedules a hearing 7 to 10 days later. They will not have a legal defense. They have no lease, no beneficiary status, no equity. The judge will issue a default judgment for possession. There is a 10-day appeal period. After that, the court issues a writ of restitution. The sheriff schedules the lockout. She looked at me over her reading glasses. You don't owe them a fight, Miss Frell. You owe them paperwork. Michigan does the rest. I signed both with a big pen she handed me. There is no ceremony in justice. Justice is a big pen and a Tuesday morning. She scanned the signed pages and sent them by encrypted email to a process server she had used for 30 years. Notice gets served tomorrow, December 28th. The 30-day period ends January 28th. If they are still in the house on January 29th, we file with the court that same morning. She paid me a small, precise smile. They will be there on January 29th, Miss Frell. People like your mother always think the law is bluffing. The process server's name was Linda Kowalski, 42 years old, licensed in 3 counties. She carried a body camera on her chest because she had been screamed at by enough people to stop relying on her memory. She arrived at 8818 Cherryband Road at 10:14 a.m. on December 28th and rang the doorbell. My mother answered in a black salon cape and a head full of foil highlights. She was in the middle of doing the hair of one of her ladies' Bible study regulars in the kitchen. She opened the door with the bright public smile she had cultivated over decades. Linda smiled back professionally briefly. "Mrs. Frell, I have a 30-day notice to quit issued by the legal owner of this property. Today is December 28th. The 30-day period begins now." My mother's face changed slowly. She held the document like the words were a language she did not speak. "This is a mistake. Service is complete whether you sign or not. Ma'am, the clock starts today." My mother tore the notice in half in front of her. The Bible study lady inside gasped. Linda's face did not change. "That's fine, ma'am. I have 3 other copies and a body cam recording confirming service."
Good day.
She walked back to her car and drove away. My mother stood in the doorway holding 2 halves of a piece of paper. Underneath a lawyer's signature, she could read the words that did not need to be read twice on behalf of property owner Amber Lynn Frell. Within the week, my mother had sent 14 emails to Helen, written 1 handwritten letter, and visited the office twice without an appointment. Helen sent back a single 1-line response to all 14 emails. "Mrs. Frell, my client does not owe you a conversation.
Goodbye."
My mother hired a lawyer named Jason Whitfield. 3 years out of law school, strip mall office in Garfield Township. He read the trust. He read the title insurance policy. He called my mother on the second day. "Ma'am, you don't have a case. You don't have standing as a beneficiary. You don't have a lease. And there's a title insurance policy on the property. I'll send my invoice." His invoice was $385. On January 29th, with my parents still in the house, Helen Crestwood walked the $45 filing fee across Front Street and dropped a summary proceedings complaint on the desk of the clerk of the 86th District Court. Hearing February 6th. My parents attended, without counsel. The judge was a woman named Patricia Greaves, black robe, 19 years on the bench. She read the trust. She read the deed. She looked at my parents over her glasses for 4 full seconds. "Mr. and Mrs. Frell, the deed is clear. The owner is requesting possession. The court grants it. You have until February 22nd. Default judgment for possession. 10-day appeal period. No appeal. Writ of restitution. Issued February 17th. Helen called me on February 20th, a Friday evening, while I was eating soup from a styrofoam container in room 207. Sheriff's office confirmed lockout for Monday, February 22nd at 10:30 a.m. Deputy Hawthorne on site with a locksmith. We don't ask anymore. We just show up. I was not at the house. I learned about most of it the way the rest of the country learned about it from a screen. My mother had spent the previous 6 days trying to convince local news to cover her side of the story. News 9 in Traverse City declined. ABC 29 in Pasky declined. A local podcast guy took an hour to research and then declined. By the morning of February 22nd, she had decided to broadcast it herself. She didn't have a TikTok account. She used my sister's. At 10 a.m., my mother sat down on the leather couch in the living room of a house she no longer owned, wearing a white cardigan she had picked because she believed white communicated innocence. My sister set up the ring light. My sister checked her own makeup 3 times in the front camera before flipping the phone around.
"Mom,"
my sister said, "Are you sure? My account is doing better lately. We recovered." My mother said, "This will make us go viral the right way." She went live at 10:30 a.m. exactly 12 viewers. She began crying before she began speaking. A tactical mistake. She had not paced the tears. My own daughter is doing this to us on Valentine's week. It was February. It was not Valentine's week. The comments noted it immediately. 45 seconds in, viewers crossed 200. 3 minutes in, 800. 5 minutes in, 4,200. Then she said the sentence that ended her. "After everything I sacrificed for her, she made me put her stocking in the fire. She made me." The comments shifted in a single avalanche. "Wait, you burned her stocking? Ma'am, you just admitted it on camera. Whose house is this even? Where is the daughter?" By 10:48 a.m. the count was 18,000. By 10:55, 41,000. By 11 ties, when the knock came at the door, the count was 58,000. My mother heard the knock. She brightened. She told the camera probably the news. Finally. See, sweetheart, they're coming for our story. And she walked to the door and opened it. Deputy Sheriff Daryl Hawthorne stood on the porch, dark green winter uniform, clipboard with a printed writ of restitution. Behind him, one backup deputy and a locksmith with a tool bag. The phone, of course, was filming. Mrs. Frell, I have a court-ordered writ of restitution from the 86th District Court. Time to vacate. My mother's mouth opened. The viewers watched it open. Excuse me, Mrs. Frell. This property belongs to Amber Lynn Frell. Per court order, you have 30 minutes to gather essential personal items. Anything left behind will be inventoried by the sheriff's office and made available for pickup within 30 days. The comments detonated. Oh my God, her daughter owns the house. This is the greatest plot twist I have ever witnessed. Protect Amber. 62,000 viewers watching live. My sister standing behind my mother dropped her side of the tripod. Her face went white. The stream cut for 2 seconds. When it came back, my mother had forgotten the camera was on. My father came out from the kitchen where he had been sitting at the breakfast table all morning with a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour earlier. He walked past my mother, past the deputy, all the way out onto the porch. He sat down on the second step. He put his hands on his knees. He looked out at the snow for a long time and he did not say anything. Finally, he spoke quietly. She owns the house, he said. She always did. He said it a little louder the second time. The TikTok caught it cleanly. My mother turned. Her face was crumpling in a way that I think was the first real expression she had worn in 25 years. Why didn't you fight for me? She said. My father looked up at her from the second step. He looked at her for a long beat. Because we shouldn't have done what we did, he said. The live stream ended. My sister deactivated her account within 12 hours. By then, someone had clipped the moment my father sat down on the porch. She owns the house. She always did. And the clip had hit 4.8 million views on Twitter in under 48 hours. If you've ever wondered whether walking away is the same as giving up, it isn't. Setting down something heavy isn't surrender. It's gravity finally working the way it's supposed to. Take a breath here with me. Then let's see what happened after the door finally closed. My parents moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Beulah, Michigan, 28 miles southwest of Traverse City. Snorts. The apartment was on the second floor of a converted Victorian above a chiropractor's office, $1,400 a month, and it had no fireplace. My mother had insisted on a fireplace when she started apartment hunting. She had to settle. When they had moved into my grandfather's house in 2015, they had sold their previous home in Acme Township for $182,000. 10 years of my father's salary plus the Acme cash had gone somewhere. I learned later from my Aunt Margie, at a coffee shop where it had gone. $168,000 to Cherryland Academy for 7 years of my sister's tuition. $22,000 to a salon my mother had tried to open in 2019 and failed to open by 2020. 3 Las Vegas vacations, never with me. $8,000 invested in the apparel side project of a fitness influencer named Tanner Brockwood, which produced exactly 0 t-shirts. By the time of the lockout, they had $31,000 in their joint checking account and a 401k. My father couldn't touch, without penalty for another 5 years. The apartment took half the savings as a deposit. My mother closed the Cherish Life by Cheryl Facebook blog 2 weeks later because the top comment on every old post, every single one, was a stranger asking some variation of "Where is Amber?" Pastor Whitfield from the Lutheran Church called her once. He didn't yell. He said, "We saw the video, Cheryl. Take some time." She did not return to that church. My sister lost 4 brand deals in 7 days. Skincare athleisure, a meal kit service, a water bottle company. The skincare director sent her an email I later read because someone screenshotted it for Reddit. "We're not comfortable being associated with the events depicted in your recent live stream." Tanner broke up with her by text 6 days after the lockout. 9 words. "This isn't the brand I'm building. I'm out." He unfollowed her on every platform within 40 minutes. My sister moved back in with my parents in Beulah at the end of March. She had 4,200 followers left on her new account. She slept on the pull-out couch in the living room. She did not speak to my mother for the first 3 weeks. On March 4th, my mother sent me a text. We did our best with what we had. One day you'll understand. I did not reply. On March 21st, my father sent me a longer text. The first thing he had ever sent me of his own accord. Amber, I know you don't owe me a reading of this. I am writing it because I owe you the writing of it. I should have stopped your mother 30 different times in 25 years. I did not. I am the kind of man who does not stop things.
I know that now.
I will not contact you again unless you want me to. I am sorry. Not because I expect it to change anything, because it is the only true thing I can give you, Dad. I read that text 14 times. I did not reply to it either, but I did not delete it. On March 28th, a Saturday morning, 3 months and 3 days after the morning my mother had put my stocking into the fire, I drove my Honda Civic up Cherry Bend Road one last time. The snow had melted off the lawn, but the air was still cold. Deputy Daryl Hawthorne was waiting on the porch with a small set of new keys on a brass ring. "Welcome home, Miss Frell," he said. I had cried 4 times since Christmas. I did not cry now. I shook his hand. I unlocked the front door with the original brass key, the one my grandfather had carried on his belt loop for 43 years, and I stepped inside. The living room was empty. They had taken everything they considered theirs. The fireplace was clean and cold. The hardwood floors my grandfather had laid in 1972 were still there. The smell of cedar, faint, was still there under everything else. I set the walnut box on the mantel where my stocking had been. The first week of April, I went up to the attic. I had not been up there in years. I climbed the pull-down ladder with a flashlight. The attic smelled of dust and the dry tannin of pine boards. In the far corner under the eave was a cardboard box I did not recognize. The flaps folded shut, labeled in marker in my grandfather's hand. Amber 2020. I sat down on the floorboards. I pulled the box toward me. I opened the flaps. Inside the box were 5 things. The first was a Christmas stocking. Soft cream wool. My name embroidered along the cuff in red thread. Slightly uneven. The way embroidery is when an old man with shaking hands does it himself in the evenings without telling anyone. On the inside cuff, where the lining met the wool, he had stitched 4 small letters, Hollow 2020. The second, third, fourth, and fifth things were small walnut boxes, exactly like the box he had given me when I was 16. The dovetails were the same. The hinges were the same. The lids were inlaid with a thin border of cherry. He had made 4 more of them. 4 backup houses in case the first one was not enough. I knelt there on the attic floorboards in the cold and the dust, and I held the stocking against my chest. And for the first time since I was 8 years old, I cried the way you cry when you are not afraid of being heard. I cried because he had been making stockings for me since the year I had learned to stop crying. He had stitched my name into wool in the evenings while my mother had stitched a different kind of story about me into the consciousness of our family. He had been working in silence downstairs against her, and I had not known. Every time my mother had told me that I had ruined every Christmas since I was born, every single time, he had been 1 floor below us with a needle in his hand, building me a Christmas that did not depend on her permission. I carried the box down. I hung the stocking on the mantel. I left the 4 backup walnut boxes on the workbench in the corner of the living room where I could see them. I pulled my grandfather's workbench out of the corner. I set it back in the middle of the room. I laid out his chisels in size order, the way he had taught me when I was 9. I tied his leather apron on, the one with the horseshoe burn. I am not a cabinet maker. I will probably never be a cabinet maker, but I will learn the way he taught me. Sandpaper with the grain. Always with the grain.
People are the same.
One last thing. My grandfather did not save me. People will want to tell you he saved me. That is not quite right. He prepared a door, and he left it where I could find it when I was ready. The hand on the doorknob on Christmas morning at 6:40 a.m. in my socks in the snow was my own. I destroyed them on paper the way he had taught me, quietly all the way. What he did, the thing only love does, was the thing he did 9 years before I needed it. He saw what was coming. He drafted a trust. He signed it with a contractor's pencil. He stitched my name into a stocking I would not find for half a decade. He put a key in a walnut box and told me any time, any reason, any hour. And then he sat with that knowledge for 9 years, and never once told me because he did not want me to feel that I had to choose between my mother and the truth before I was ready. The world will sometimes try to make you feel like a burden. The math will sometimes look that way. That is not love's math. Love's math is quieter. It is being on the second floor when no one is watching with a needle in the years before the storm. Some people don't make a key for you on the day you need it. They make the key years in advance. They keep it in a drawer. They wait. If you've ever been the quiet one in a loud family, listen. The people who love you don't always say it. Sometimes they sign the deed. Sometimes they stitch your name into wool. Sometimes they spend 9 years building a door. And they put it where you can find it when you finally have to walk through one.
I'm Unbeknownst.
I am 25 years old. I live at 818 Cherry Bend Road in the house my grandfather built with his own hands in 1971 and left to me in 2016 and handed me by way of a brass key in a walnut box on the coldest morning of my life. I have a fireplace. I have a stocking on the mantel with my name embroidered in red thread. And I have a door.